Let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at something absolutely wild. How unidentified anomalous phenomena went from, late-night conspiracy fodder straight into the heart of hardcore mainstream government bureaucracy. We're going to break down the timeline, the intense legislation, and these unprecedented declassification drops happening literally right now, all using data straight from government archives and legal analysis.
It all boils down to one incredibly profound question that's been gripping Washington, and probably a lot of you, over the last few years. How on earth did something so heavily stigmatized become official, urgent government business? Because make no mistake, we are witnessing a massive shift. We're moving away from decades of nothing-to-see-here denial to standing up entire bureaucratic frameworks just to catalog the unknown.
Just to give you a sense of how seriously this is being taken, look at this quote. This isn't some sci-fi script. This is retired U.S. Navy Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet on mainstream news. He flat out says there are unexplained objects under intelligent control in our domain, and we don't understand their intentions, period. When a former senior military official says that out loud, it forces a total paradigm shift. It's exactly this kind of blunt reality check that kickstarted the government's recent moves.
So, a crucial detail here. We aren't just saying UFOs anymore. The terminology itself got a major upgrade. UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomena, is the new official umbrella term. And this isn't just semantics, it's a huge deal because it legitimizes the actual scope of what we're seeing. It covers anomalies up in the air, out in space, and even transmedium objects operating underwater. It's a much broader, way more scientific approach to the data.
Which brings us to our first section, the whistleblower spark.
We had decades of quiet rumblings, right? But everything shifted into high gear when one specific guy stepped forward and actually used the legal whistleblower framework to sound the alarm in Congress. Look at the rapid escalation on this timeline. We kick off with that famous 2004 Nimitz Tic Tac encounter off the coast of California, which really planted the seed. Then the UAP task force pops up in 2020, but look at how insane the timeline gets starting in July 2023. In just a few short years, we rocket from public congressional hearings all the way to sweeping presidential declassification directives in 2026. The momentum here is just staggering.
The spark that truly lit this whole fire was the sworn testimony of David Grusch. Now, he wasn't just some random guy. He was a career Air Force intelligence officer. In fact, the intelligence community inspector general actually found his claims met the legal threshold of being credible and urgent. Under oath, Grusch alleged a deeply buried, illegal, off-the-books crash retrieval program. He claimed they recovered non-human biologics, and get this, that exotic materials were being funneled straight to private aerospace contractors specifically to dodge Freedom of Information Act requests.
Grusch's claim that a legacy program is actively dodging congressional oversight, that set off an absolute bipartisan explosion in Washington, demanding answers. I mean, he explicitly called out factions inside intelligence agencies for blocking access, even shutting out presidentially appointed teams. This completely transformed the whole issue. It went from a fringe debate about aliens to a highly grounded, serious constitutional crisis about government oversight and misappropriated funds.
Moving to Section 2, the 2024 NDAA battle.
So that massive demand for answers led right to the halls of Congress and triggered a really fierce legislative fight over the 2024 National Defense Authorization Act, or the NDAA. Lawmakers from across the aisle realized, hey, if Grusch is telling the truth, we are being illegally bypassed. But check out the stark contrast between what they proposed and what actually passed. A super powerful bipartisan coalition pushed the Schumer-Rounds amendment. It was incredibly aggressive, mandating federal eminent domain to literally seize UAP materials from private companies, with a presumption of immediate public disclosure. But look at the final law on the right. It got heavily watered down. No eminent domain, just a standard National Archives collection, and a gigantic loophole allowing a 25-year delay for national security reasons.
What does this actually mean for us? Well, according to legal analyses, this final version was a massive win for private defense contractors. It basically means that research entities working on government-funded projects still have incredibly broad legal avenues to keep their sensitive UAP data locked up tight. The government alone still decides what gets out, leaving a lot of the power right where it was to begin with.
And honestly, the pushback wasn't just legislative. The Pentagon's own Anomaly Resolution Office, ARO, dropped a report that thoroughly dismissed Grusch's claims. But wow, did that backfire. It only fueled the fire. The report got slammed for totally omitting landmark cases like the 2004 Nimitz incident. Then, the former head of ARO went and publicly mocked the whole discourse as a self-licking ice cream cone. Rather than settling anything, bipartisan lawmakers dragged the Pentagon's report, calling it deliberate obfuscation. Trust was, well, pretty much broken at that point.
Now for Section 3, the pursue declassification.
With Congress hitting brick walls and the Pentagon accused of covering things up, the executive branch stepped in with an absolutely unprecedented intervention in 2026. Setting aside any political affiliations for a second, we just have to look at the historical record here. This directive from President Trump marked a massive, official shift toward using raw executive power for UAP transparency. Bypassing all the usual interagency squabbling, the directive ordered the newly styled Department of War to aggressively hunt down, declassify, and release these unresolved records directly to the American public.
And this wasn't just empty rhetoric either. The resulting system, Pursue, or the Presidential Unsealing and Reporting System for UAP encounters, is actually churning out real data. We are talking about gigabytes of videos and documents hitting the internet in highly structured rolling tranches every few weeks. It's a massive, frankly unprecedented bureaucratic undertaking designed to clear out a backlog of unresolved cases stretching back decades.
It is absolutely staggering to see what's actually sitting inside these releases. This dry, super bureaucratic government database now publicly houses everything from the 1948 Project Sign progress reports to 1996 NASA Space Shuttle images showing unidentified objects in orbit. It even includes crazy modern stuff, like 2025 military tracking videos from the Yellow Sea. The sheer scope of this, both in time and geography, is completely mind-bending.
As the Secretary of War noted impartially in his public statement, this whole massive effort is about finally letting the American people see the hidden data for themselves. Think about that for a second. The government is formally acknowledging that keeping these files classified has fueled, quote, justified speculation, and they are finally using the machinery of the state to rip the Band-Aid right off.
Which brings us to our final section, the cultural paradigm shift. Triggered by all these U.S. disclosures, the UAP conversation is definitely not isolated to American politics anymore. Allied nations like Japan are stepping up and initiating their own disclosure frameworks. Over in France, they've got a state-sponsored unit called GPAN actively investigating. South American countries are openly looking into this stuff without the usual public stigma. And on the academic side, organizations like the Sol Foundation are gathering top-tier scientists and legal scholars in Europe to tackle this whole phenomenon collaboratively.
The biggest takeaway you really need to absorb from all this is the profound shift in the tone of the conversation. Governments, legal scholars, astrophysicists, they aren't debating if these anomalies exist anymore. The data confirms they do. The conversation is completely shifted to how do we as humanity structurally, legally, and ethically prepare for the reality of non-human intelligence.
So I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought. Considering the massive legislative battles we've just seen, the serious claims of illegal reverse engineering programs, and the literal gigabytes of data now flowing through unprecedented presidential declassification systems, if there is really no there, what exactly is the government responding to? Think about that for a while. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep your eyes on the data.